So, after a prolonged absence, I've decided to rejoin this particular conversation, which happens to be about religion and science. An age-old concern, an age-old debate, but one that I believe has got renewed vigour due to the socio-political climate. Now, Matt, I believe that your particular view on this subject is that since the relatively recent disconnect between the scientific method and religious discussion, those who have adopted a purely scientific or materialistic stance have undermined certain questions. They have belittled actually very important questions to the sidelines, to largely irrelevant religious drivel. I think that's largely true. I don't think it's necessarily true. I think you can be a scientific materialist, a reductionist materialist, and still consider these questions to be of the utmost importance. I myself consider that I have that particular stance. It is true, however, that due to the, shall we call it, popular atheist movement, authors like Daniel Dennett, like Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, Penn Jillette, these types of people, while they have done much to advance scientific understanding, there's a lot of things that they have swept to the sidelines. They have considered of no importance, whereas traditionally some of these problems have been considered of central importance, such as what's the nature of the universe, what is the purpose of existence, what is the good, what is our relationship to the external world. So these particular questions aren't the focus of the modern atheists, and despite the fact that these particular questions have once held a very central place in theological discussion, they're no longer part of the conversation. I think that is true. But we do have to be very careful about this, because the relationship between science and religion is obviously not that straightforward. It's not as if there has been a simple diversion between two opposing ideas. I do think that, unlike yourself, that religion and science, as they are so now conceived, are incompatible, simply due to the fact that one relies on evidence and one exists only in spite of evidence. I think a lot of the traditional questions of theological discussion are now largely irrelevant because they were justifying the behaviour of a supposed omnipotent, benevolent being. So I think a large part of things that were of traditional importance to theological researchers now just don't make sense in the current climate. So I think we have to be very careful of that when trying to create a synthesis. I also think that there is not necessarily the need for the synthesis that you envisage, simply because the parallel thought, the parallel line of argument is already there. And that parallel line of inquiry is philosophy. It's the philosophy of science, it's the philosophy of religion, and it's the philosophy of metaphysics and ethics. So these parallel lines of inquiry do exist, and though they are largely sidelined, they have still been in development for thousands of years. So it's not as if once this religious dogma finally perishes that we'll have a vacuum, an intelligence vacuum, where we've just simply lost sight of other forms of knowledge. Because I think the investigation that philosophy has and is carrying out can provide that alternative explanation which you seek. It can answer questions and attempt to answer questions such as, what is our relationship to the external world? Such as, why are we here? Such as, what is the ultimate essential nature of the universe? So I think a synthesis of the kind that you envisage is not only not necessary, but I think in creating that synthesis we could inadvertently reduce the scope of the conversation rather than expand it, which is, of course, I know your intention. So I see your sentiment and I see your thought, but I think the fact of the matter is that just because a large part of the new atheist movement remain reasonably uninformed of these types of issues, it doesn't mean that the work's not there, and it doesn't mean that these questions have not been attempted to be answered, which I'm sure you can appreciate. So I think I've said enough of my thoughts on this issue, and I'll let you get back to the conversation. Thank you very much. Peace.